If you have an application pending with USCIS or with the embassies and you're not paying attention to the travel bans and the pauses going on, then I'm gonna need you to pay attention because this is going to dramatically shift the way your visa or your green card application will be processed in the future. I am U.S. immigration attorney Lilian Chukwurah, and I help my clients get green cards and citizenships for themselves and their families using the U.S. immigration law system. Now, before we get into what you can do, let's talk about the history of this travel ban that is happening with this administration. It all started on June 4th, 2025, when the initial list of travel banned countries were announced. And that initial list only affected visas outside of the US. It did not affect USCIS. USCIS was still processing cases and approving cases. So that was in June of 2025, and the affected countries were either put on a partial travel ban or a full travel ban. The difference between the two is that a full travel ban basically means that no visas will be issued for citizens and nationals of that country. That means no immigrant visas and no non immigrant visas. That non immigrant visas are temporary visas to the US, like a visiting visa, student visa, performance visa. Whereas an immigrant visa was about coming to the US and living here permanently, that led to permanent residency, a green card. The full ban banned all forms of visas, non immigrant visas, and immigrant visas. The partial ban banned all immigrant visas, those ones that lead to a green card, and some non immigrant visas. And the immigrant visas that they banned were the B visa, the F, M, and J visas. Those are banned under the partial travel ban, where you can apply for other types of non immigrant visas if your country is on the partial travel ban list, but on the full travel ban list, it's no visas at all. There were exceptions during the June 4th proclamation for immediate relatives of US citizens. So if you were married to a US citizen, if you were a minor child of a US citizen, if you were a parent of a US citizen, you had a carve out where you were not affected by this travel ban. The countries that were affected by that June 4th travel ban and the full travel ban were Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. And then the ones that were on the partial travel ban were Burundi, Cuba, Togo, Venezuela, and Turkmenistan. The June 4th travel ban only affected you if you were outside of the US applying for a visa to come to the US. It did not affect USCIS until December of 2025, where USCIS basically issued a policy memo saying that anyone from those countries that were on the June 4th travel ban will now have their cases that are pending with USCIS paused. So now USCIS will take applications for people from those countries, but will not issue a decision. We have seen interviews being canceled right before the person was supposed to go in for the interview. So USCIS is really not processing and making decisions on applications from people from those countries. And when I say applications, I am not just talking about green cards. We are seeing this with naturalization. So if you're trying to become a US citizen, this is also going to affect you. And again, that is something that we are seeing happen. And what I said before, the USCIS policy does not give an exception for immediate relatives of US citizens. So, immediate relatives of US citizens, their spouses, minor children, and parents were also affected by the USCIS policy. The June 4th travel ban had an exception for immediate relatives of US citizens, but the USCIS memo does not. So, after that, on December 18th, the US government again issued a new proclamation adding more countries to the travel ban list. So we know who were on the original June 4th travel ban list. They are still on the travel ban list, but now we're adding more people. The new travel ban added the following countries to the full travel ban, and those are Burkina Faso, Laos, Mali, Niger, Sierra Leone, South Sudan, Syria, and anyone traveling on a document issued or endorsed by the Palestinian Authority. And then for the partial travel ban, they added the following countries: Angola, Antigua and Barbuda, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, Dominica, Gabon, the Gambia, Malawi, Mauritania, Nigeria, Senegal, Tanzania, Tonga, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. That new proclamation, although it was issued on the 18th of December, went into effect on January 1st of 2026. So they basically gave you a heads up, basically, that this was coming. So on January 1st, 2026, all those countries are now on a travel ban list. And on the same January 1st, USCIS issues a new policy memo including those countries on the pause. So not only can you not get a visa to the US if you are on the travel ban list, you can also not get your applications that you're filing in the US to be approved. And again, that includes green card applications, that includes naturalization applications. So if you're from any of these countries and you're in the US trying to apply for naturalization, you're in the US trying to apply for a green card through your children, through your spouse, through a parent, you are affected by this policy. Okay? As if we were not already inundated with travel bans and USCIS pauses, the US Department of State, which handles the embassies, meaning visas outside of the US, issues a memo saying that they are also going to pause immigrant visa decisions for 75 countries. Immigrant visa decisions for 75 countries. That means if you are a US citizen and you are filing for your spouse that lives outside of the US and you're waiting for their visa application to be processed by the embassy and for them to have their interview, the US embassy is still going to do all of that, right? They're still going to process the visa application, they're still going to have their interview, but when they get to that interview and they qualify for the visa, the embassy is still going to deny them the visa because of this proclamation. And until the proclamation is lifted, right? Until this pause is lifted, no one from these countries, 75 countries, are getting immigrant visas. We're not talking non-immigrant visas, we're talking immigrant visas. And if you don't remember, immigrant visas are visas for people coming to the US to live in the US permanently, to have their green card, people that want to actually live here permanently and are going through the legal immigration process. Those are the people that are now not going to be allowed to come to the US, even though they've been waiting for USCIS to approve their I-130. They've been waiting for the National Visa Center to make them documentarily qualified with their visa application and their documents. And now they've been waiting for the embassy to schedule their interview. And some of these people have been waiting for years, 3 years, 4 years, just to get the chance to get their interview. And now they're being denied, not because they don't qualify, but because of this pause. So, again, that is only affecting immigrant visas, not non-immigrant visas. So, when you're looking at whether your country is banned, whether your country is part of the pause, it's really important to note that there is overlap between the countries that have a travel ban and the countries that are on this pause list. For example, Nigeria is on a partial travel ban, meaning no immigrant visas and no B visas, F visas, M and J visas for them, right? But they're also on the list of the 75 countries that have a pause on immigrant visas, but they're already on a partial ban that bans immigrant visas. But alas, we don't make the rules, right? We don't have to make it make sense. But just know, just because you are on that does not mean, right? Just because you are on the new 75 country pause does not mean you are also no longer on the travel ban. You're still on the travel ban if you're on the travel ban. It's just this is an additional thing, and they're just lumping countries together. So both of the travel bans, right? The travel ban is separate from the pause. So it's really important to note that just because your country is on the pause list does not mean it's on the travel ban list. Okay? It's important to note that just because your country is on the list of the 75 countries does not mean it is not still on a travel ban. Okay? So it's really important to make sure that you're looking at both. And I've had people reach out to me to try and expedite their case and not even realize that their country is on a travel ban list or that their country is on the 75 pause list. So it's really important that as you are going through your immigration journey, that you are keeping up with all the changes. And that's why I started with the history of what's going on, right? We know it started in June. And now we're here and there's new things going on. So it's really important that you stay up to date on all these changes because it literally does change overnight. It's important to note that the new pause for the 75 countries actually goes into effect on January 21st of 2026. So if you already had an immigrant visa interview for one of those countries and your visa was issued and you have it, you can still travel with your documents, okay? It's just they cannot issue and print new visas after on or after January 21st, but if they do it before that, it's still valid. If you have it, it's still valid. You can still travel. So that's really important to note because I know people had that question of can I travel if my visa is already approved? Yes, you can if you have it in your hand before January 21st. Now, what does all of this mean for your case? Right? If you have a case with USCIS, in most situations, USCIS is still going to process the case. They're just not going to schedule you for an interview because they can't make a decision. And typically, the interview is the last step before they have to make a decision on your case. So we're seeing them not schedule those interviews and are just waiting for that pause to be over. If you're at the embassy, you may get an interview if you're on the 75 list that does not overlap with the ban list. Okay. So if you're on the 75 list, you are going to get that interview. You are going to go through the entire process, but just know the embassy will still not approve you because of this policy. Okay. It's not you. You did nothing wrong, but they're going to just deny you because they're going to assume that anyone from these countries are going to be a public charge and we're going to deny everyone. So it is not something that you did. It is not something about your case. It is this policy. And I've had to tell people that so much because they were like, okay, what if I filed my case on time? What if I filed earlier? If your country is already backed up when it comes to interviews and you would not have gotten an interview before this point anyway, you would still be affected by the travel ban, right? Regardless of how good you did, right? Regardless of how clean your case is, regardless of how good your evidence is of your relationship, of your case is, that is not what is being judged here. They're just looking at, are you from this country? Yes, then no visa for you. Okay, I really want to make that clear to you so that you do not feel like there's something you could have done differently. Okay, the only thing you could have done differently is be born in a different country. That's really it. And you cannot control that. So just know these are things that are not in your control, but you need to stay on top of it and be aware of what's going on. This is not the time to be like, you know what, I'm not going to apply for anything. I'm just going to wait and see. Because guess what? People did that during COVID. They decided not to file their applications because, well, the embassies are closed. So I'm just going to wait and see what happens. Guess what? Those people are still waiting because they did not get their applications in. The embassy opened and they processed the people that have put their applications in. So that's the same thing here. This is not like it's never going to change. So you want to make sure that you get your application in so that once the pause is lifted, once the travel ban is lifted, your case can actually be processed. You are already in the process. You're not starting fresh. Okay? So remember, if you're on that 75 list, USCIS is still going to process your case. The National Visa Center is still going to process your case. And the embassy is still going to process your case. They just can't approve it yet. So imagine you start your process or you continue with your process and you now have your interview, and the only reason you're denied is because of this. Once that pause is lifted for your country, the embassy can now go ahead and approve your case. They're not going through an interview. They're not starting to process your visa. You're already at the end. You're just waiting for that ban or that pause to be lifted. So do not wait. Okay, do not wait and fall victim to time, because the more time you're out of the immigration application system, the more you'll have to make up later, because this ban, depending on how long it lasts, is going to create years of a backlog, which is what we saw that happened with COVID. So please, this is not the time to basically bury your head and be like, you know what, I'll wait. No, this is not the time to do that. You want to get ahead of everyone else, because guess what? Everyone else is going to be, putting their head down and not putting in their applications that they qualify for. But you're watching my video and you're not going to do that. You're going to get ahead of them because there's going to be a rush of applications once the bans are lifted. But your application, because you listen to me, is going to already be processing, and you are not going to be in that rush of applying once the bans are lifted. You're going to just be waiting for your visa to be approved, or your green card to be approved, or your citizenship to be approved. So, as of today, there are 39 countries that are either on a full travel ban or a partial travel ban, and those 39 countries are also on a USCIS pause, meaning USCIS will not process and approve their case. And then there's the 75 countries that are on a pause with the embassies. So the embassy will not be able to approve your visa if you are from those 75 countries. There is overlap between the two, and you need to be aware of that. But just know, if you're on that 75 list, you will go through the whole process, have an interview, but not be approved. If you're on the travel ban, you will maybe go through the process. But with USCIS, they are pausing those 39 countries. They are not going to schedule you for an interview and approve your case. So it's really important to understand the difference between the two and know that there is overlap. But if your country is on the 75 list but are not on the travel ban list, USCIS will still process and approve your case, and the embassy will still process your case, have you go to an interview, and just not issue you the visa. Okay? The most important thing I want you to get out of this video is that you should not wait until all of this is lifted to start your case. If you qualify, you need to start your case now. You don't want to wait however long this whole process takes for them to lift all these bans before you start processing your case, because that's time that you are losing. Okay, that's time that you're losing. So you want to make sure that you are starting that process now and not waiting later. A lot of people that waited during COVID are regretting it now. So do not be in that case where you are now regretting waiting. And if you are in a place where you're trying to figure out whether you should file, whether this is the right time for you, and if you qualify, for what you're looking to file, whether it's a green card in the US or a visa for a family member, go ahead and schedule a strategy session with me or a paid consultation where we can talk about your case and figure out what is the best strategy for you, what is the way forward for you and your family, and make sure that you are doing everything in your power, even with the travel ban, to place yourself in a place where your case can be approved in the future. If you would like to schedule that consultation with me, you can go to my website, lilylegal.com, click on contact us, and you can pick a date and time that works best for you for us to talk about your case.